Today's episode is a second part with Michael Zuber, right? The first part we got his story and kind of how he achieved his success and how he's grown to where he is today. But now the second part is we're going to focus in on the economy and kind of what he sees in the economy today and what he kind of sees could be happening in the future. So he studies and pays a lot of attention to what's going on. So it's a really interesting insight to his opinion on what could come next. So check out all of that. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE Podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a review. It really does help build this platform and for me to continue pumping out great content. And I'm looking to speak to as many of you as possible. If you're interested in real estate, whatever capacity that is, I'd love to get to know you, see if there's any way I can help you. I just love talking about real estate, so any excuse is good for me. And go to the link in the description down below or go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com and we can hop on a call and just have a great conversation. But before that, enjoy today's great interview and topic about the economy, with Michael Zuber. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now, we're joined for the second fantastic episode with Michael Zuber. We had first time around, we heard about your story and everything that you achieved and how cool that was and how inspiring that was. So I appreciate you sharing that story. But now we're going to talk about something more current and more specific, right? And I think we're going to talk about the economy, kind of where we are at now, what's kind of what you saw, because you've been investing since 2002, so you've seen a lot during that time. I've seen some run-ups and seen some stuff 08, 09 for sure, and kind of you pay attention as well, right? I think that's the big thing. Not only have you been investing in real estate, you pay attention to what's going on. So maybe talk about what you saw during the 08, 09 to start off with. And people are making comparisons, right? But there's never two recessions that are the same, right? Even if this is going to be a recession. So maybe just touch on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I think the first thing to kind of relate, I'm going to do my best to kind of relate 2020, 2021 with kind of 08, 09. And the reason I want to do this for folks is there's a lot of YouTube entertainers, and I use that word on purpose, YouTube entertainers, highly paid, but they're still entertainers, who've only been in the real estate business 5 years or less. All they have known is this up cycle. And now what they're doing is they're constantly pulling out their favorite chart is called home prices or median home prices. And what they do, if you look at the chart, it has a peak here, call it 08, and a peak here called 2020. And then they show you this chart and they go, ooh, ouch, pain, pain, pain. And they're wrong. They're either uneducated or stupid, and I'll let you pick which one. Because while it is true that the median home price of today is similar to 08, they are failing to realize that an interest rate of 6.5% in 08 is very different than 2.75 today. People buy houses on payments. The payment today is lower and significantly lower than 08. There's a chart I use called payments to income. And historically speaking, the average has been 31%, right? You are burdened if your mortgage payment gets over 40%, but the long run average has been 31%. And today, because of the interest rates, and this is all interest rate related, the payment is bumping right up against 31. So we have a long way to go. That's 8% before we are really in trouble. Now, 8% can be done one of two ways, either price increase or interest rate increase, right? So the both of those things are possible, or they could work in combination. But to say we're going to have a bubble or a burst, or what just sets me off is there's these kids that are talking about a 30 to 40% crash in single family homes next year. It is mathematically impossible. Because not only are they wrong about values and payments, but what they are constantly saying is, what about these 3.2 million people in forbearance? What if they all don't pay? Well, okay, let's have this conversation. First and foremost, they're not a day late. So don't you tell me these 3.2 million people are late. They are not late. They have agreement from their bank for a pause. That is your first difference from '08. When you were a borrower in '08 and had a problem, the bank told you, we will not negotiate with you until you're 90 days late. So what happened in '08 is if you got 60 days down, you lost your house at 91% of the time. So basically 9 in 10. The banks don't want to do that again. The banks are like, shoot, '08 was painful. What we're going to do now is we're going to give everybody 90 days of free rent or free mortgage pause, whatever you want. And if they need more time, shoot, give them another 90 days. So banks are fundamentally acting different today. But yes, this forbearance period will eventually end. It will probably end early to mid next year. But there's not a person who is in the program that is actually late. Foreclosures happen like this, and it differs by state. Typically, you've got to be 90 days late before a notice of default is scheduled, right, or recorded. Then there is like another 100-day process or 120-day process to do all the filings and paperwork. Then it goes to the courthouse in a non-judicial state. In a judicial state, it's even longer. So why do I bring that up? Because again, these kids are talking about a crash in 2020, and they don't realize that the average time frame to a foreclosure in '08 in California was 700 days. Nevada, 1,400 days. In New York, 1,700 days. So take out your little calculator, divide 365 by 700, it's almost 2 years. So if a borrower doesn't make their May payment in 2021, and then they don't make their June and they don't make their July, they won't lose that home until early 2023. So this foreclosure wave these kids are talking about just suddenly showing up isn't going to happen. They're telling people bad advice. The other thing that is vastly different is Wall Street is ready to gobble up inventory. When this crash happened in '08, how did banks get rid of inventory? They threw it on the MLS. And if you watched our first interview, I was buying stuff every week out of the MLS. It was like finding gold bricks everywhere. And then suddenly one day Wall Street showed up and the party was over. Now we have Invitation Homes and all these other Wall Street firms with 50, 80, 100,000 single family homes. You get a 10% discount in Vegas, they're buying. You get a 10% discount in Orlando, they're buying. This wave of, 50, you won't see a 50% discount in Vegas. It's not going to happen. They are building homes in Vegas to rent, right? So, these people hoping for a 30 or 40% crash, again, single family, are just flat out wrong for all kinds of reasons. Those three just being the top, off the top of my head.
But couldn't unemployment? Now, I'm again not saying there could be a crash, but unemployment could be an issue, right? It's whatever it is. So if it might not be a foreclosure. It might be a case of, hey, because another argument people make is that people have more equity than they had in a long time, right?
Sure.
But if there's a flood of inventory because people have lost their jobs, the stimulus money has checked down, they can't make their mortgage payment even though they have equity. If there's a flood of inventory, could that cause something?
Well, yeah. Well, so first off, logically speaking, yes, lots of shoulds and coulds and all of that. But let's talk about what we are going through today in reality. We have what I have called for months now, and now the Wall Street Journal and other folks are calling this a K-shaped recovery. A K-shaped recovery just means it's unfair. The people that were disproportionately impacted by this economy are not owners, they're renters, right? You're a restaurant worker, you're a hotel worker, you're a casino worker in Vegas, right? Some of you are owners, absolutely. But again, in mass, it's renters. And oh, by the way, it's not renters in homes. Usually it's the ones that are living as close to the edge, and that's apartment renters. So again, unemployment in this crisis has been disproportionately on the bottom end of our economic cycle. So unemployment is a problem. It is going to be far bigger problem in commercial or multifamily than houses. Again, I have experience. I own all kinds of properties. People in houses, they never want to go back. What you will see in single families, if you lost your job, you would invite your sister, your best friend, your dog. You'll house hack because you don't want to go back to an apartment. If you're in a little studio or a one bedroom in a B class or C class apartment, you're like, I'm going to fight this as long as possible. and then I'll go live with my sister. So it's logically speaking, you are right. Unemployment should cause housing, like ownership problems. This crisis is different. The white collar, the work from home, the high incomes, the top of the K, they have more money than they've ever had. Why? Because they can't spend it anywhere. They're all stuck at home. They're not doing vacations. They're not eating out. They're not going to Cirque du Soleil shows, right? They got more money than they know what to do with. So logically, you are right, but unemployment in this crisis has disproportionately impacted multifamily apartments and renters versus owners.
So you think that if there's going to be some opportunity, it'll be in multifamily rather than in single family properties?
Oh, no question. Jonathan Twombly and I talk about this all the time, right? If there's a multifamily deal that was put together as value add in 18 or 19, and it has a 1, 2, 3 year interest only period, woo, you're about to have a problem. Right. Hotels will go first. And I just seen my first hotel deal go bad. Some offices will go bad, but it's going to be value add multifamily. Like if you did a value add multifamily deal in 19, I feel for you. Right now, that's not nationally speaking. I think Atlanta is going to be fine and some of these other kind of South cities, but there are going to be some people that lose their ass, right? The equity position, limited partners are going to get smoked in some deals.
But why do you say that about the value add in terms of value add? If you did
because you just wrote bad deals. Again, if you relate the 08 crisis to 2019, it was the debt structure that was bad. Why did 08 happen? It's because the debt was toxic. 2 and 28, which meant you had a 2-year term for 9.9% interest, and then it ballooned to 8.9% or 9.9%. In multifamily value add, you may have an interest only period for 2 years. And that's how you do your debt service and how you do your paybacks. But guess what? Jonathan Twombly and I have showed you how we can take $100 million building and make it worth $60 million by just gently lowering rents, increasing vacancies, increasing bad debt. Pretty soon the equity's gone. And it's all because the interest only period unlocks. Then you have a lender who comes in and evaluates the deal and goes, hey, you either give me more equity or I'm going to put you in technical default. And then I'm going to manage your cash. So yeah, multifamily value add in trouble, in my opinion.
Interesting. Yeah, really interesting. So how are you positioning yourself with this now then to take advantage?
I sold a couple of, I didn't see this coming, right? So first off, again, 2019, I sold some C-class apartments because houses were better deals and people were overpaying. Then now what I'm doing is I'm looking for single family homes today. I do think multifamily in Fresno will be okay because the population's growing and rents are growing. But right now I'm positioning myself to buy as many houses as I can because I'm going to repeat what's in my book. We talked about it in the first episode. What did I do? I bought 6 houses in a duplex. Prices went up. Then I sold them and I did 1031 exchanges into apartments. So I'm going to buy as many houses as I can between now and 2023. And then if happens, what I think is going to happen is some multifamily deals go bust. I'm going to use my network with banks and lenders and hopefully pick up some assets, and I'll 1031 out of houses into apartments again. I am not touching a multifamily deal in this market. The cap rates are still ridiculously low. My market should be a 7.5 and it's a 5 today. It's crazy.
So in your opinion, you think prices are going to continue to rise for the foreseeable future?
In what?
In single family.
Yeah, I'm predicting a 10% increase next year.
Wow.
Nationally. Now that's not everywhere. I think San Francisco's in trouble. I think Orlando could be in trouble. I think New York may have a hiccup. I think San Francisco's in big trouble, but nationally 10%.
And then, but at what point does that 10% raise the mortgage to, is that 31% closer to that? 40%?
Yeah, it's out there. Right. I mean, and again, it's a combination of what is going to pop the single family market is interest rates. Mm-hmm. If you can tell me when the 30-year interest rate is going to be 5%, I can tell you when this pops. Yeah. But nobody knows. I mean, could a 30-year rate actually have a 1 on it, like 1.99? I don't know. Maybe. I never thought it would have a 2 on it. I never thought it'd have a 3. Right? My first loan was like 6 5/8. So, I mean, these rates today are insane to me. But again, we don't know, right? If the 30-year stays below 3%, I did calculations about 4 months ago, so I might be off slightly. I assumed interest rates stayed at 3%. So they're even lower now, but let's assume 3%. My market of Fresno, I think the median at the time was 335. Median would have to go to 415 before the affordability bumped up against a number that I would be uncomfortable with. That's a 35% jump, right? So, or a 30% jump. You can't get there in a year. You're not going to get 30% appreciation in a year. So it could run for a couple of years. You never know.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. And then in terms of multifamily, you think the pain could come?
It's going to be the debt. It's going to be the debt because again, I've been doing this a while. Banks have options, just like we talked about in the first episode. Banks could very easily say, you know what? Your IO period's over. You can't afford it. We're going to give you another year of IO. They could do that with a signing of a pen. Or they could be nasty and go, shit, we sold that debt to somebody else. We don't have any options. We're going to foreclose, right? They could take it back because you're in technical default. It's going to be all up on the banks. If you could tell me what the banks are going to do, I could tell you. I think you got to be extra careful in multifamily today. There are clearly some markets that work, Atlanta being the one that makes a lot of sense. Even Sacramento. I mean, Sacramento's seen an uptick in 6-figure jobs. I mean, that could make sense. You just got to be careful. It's not 2014 through 18 were like the best years to do multifamily, right? Anybody who was a syndicator then was making money hand over fist. It's a lot harder today.
Yeah. No, it's true, right? The rising tide raises all ships at that point, right? You didn't have to do anything, right? You could be no idea what you were doing 14 and you became a millionaire. Yeah. It's just that easy. Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's really interesting. And like you said, on the point of the banks, right? The banks have learned as well, I think, right? There's mitigating circumstances why they would foreclose, but they don't want to go through that because they saw what they created, right? That wasn't good for them. It was. Oh. They don't want to sell stuff for 50 cents on the dollar or even more, right? If they can hold on to it. I've heard that they even sometimes rent these properties out now, right? So they don't have to sell them, right? So it's
extend and pretend is real. Because again, the banks really know. The banks know. And again, you're seeing this in their public. I mean, they like JP Morgan, every 90 days, they report their numbers, right? They're now talking about banks being over reserved, which I told you was going to happen a year ago. If you watch my channel, I'm like, there's a chance that they are over reserved, right? They're putting away 4 billion, 6 billion, 8 billion for bad debt.
Yeah.
All they're going to do is extend and pretend. This economy comes roaring back next year. Shoot, Vegas could be back. You could be back doing Cirque du Soleil by October, right? Doing 17 shows a day or whatever it is. We don't know. It's this economy is amazing. The American economy is amazing. It will come roaring back like we've never seen before. We just got to build confidence. That's a big thing. We need to get the consumer confident and more people feeling confident. So it's going to be fun to watch. And then at that point, I think multifamily has a hiccup for like a year, because if a bank just extends and pretends and takes you out to 2023, all's forgiven, right? The pandemic's in the rearview mirror. Everybody's working again. Rents are up. It's all good. But there's a possibility that debt structure changes this year. You better have a good relationship with your lender.
Yeah, for sure. It's so interesting to me, everything that goes, because there's so many moving parts, right? It's just like you said, there's so much in the air that you don't know, like how the bank's going to react. What's the Fed going to do, right? They start. Oh yeah, all that. Rates. Oh shit, things can change pretty quick, because everyone's assuming now that interest rates are going to stay low for the next 2 years, right? That's what everyone is assuming, right? And that's what they've said, but the Fed can change at any point that they decide, right? So it's just, you never ever know. Man, this is cool. Well, thank you for sharing, man. I really appreciate that. But as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I'd like to incorporate some wrestling related real estate questions.
All right.
And the first one is, what would your wrestling name be? If you picked a wrestling name for yourself, what would that be?
It would have to be, so most of my friends just call me Z, so it would have to be like Zorro or Z-Man, something like that, probably.
Okay, the Z-Man, I like that. The Z,
yeah.
The Z-Man.
There you go.
So every wrestler has a special move or a signature move. It's their biggest strength. What is your special move in real estate, you think?
I have a unique ability I have learned to just consistently execute, right? I've looked at my market every day for 20 years. It's only 10 or 20 minutes, but still every day. And I have come to realize after talking to thousands of people that that's a unique thing. So my ability to just be like a hammer and look at it every day is a superpower.
Yeah, for sure, right? And just keeping that finger on the pulse, right? And keeping up to date with everything that's going on. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate investing career?
Oh, it was that first deal we actually didn't talk about. So that first deal, we moved in a tenant. We were all happy. Long story short, they got divorced a month after moving in. The wife took off, and the husband decided to stop working, stop paying rent, and become a professional alcoholic. Again, I'm in California, so that means it took me almost 90 days to get him out. Never got another dollar of rent. Spent $1,000 on an attorney, and then had a $15,000 repair bill because he destroyed my house. That was our first rental, and that almost killed us.
Wow. But then you just knew that was the path that you wanted to take, though, because again, you know, you got your nose.
We were going to try one more time. We could get off the mat once. I'm not sure we could have got off the mat twice. That was a pretty big body slam.
Thankfully, you didn't. You kept the things went well from there. Then I'm guessing.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, thankfully. So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope, getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
I remember in 2010, after we'd bought 3 or 4 houses, and at this point, they were probably 65 or 70 grand. So they were cheap, but they weren't as cheap as they were getting. And I remember going, why am I the only one doing this? Where the hell is everybody else? Do they not know what am I missing? Right? Are they going to go to zero? I mean, what is going on? I remember thinking that while sitting on the top rope going, I hope this works out, because I'm going to jump and we're going to see what happens.
But how did you overcome that?
Faith. I did the work. I knew the prices. I knew the rents. I knew the yield. But still, you just don't know. You can practice a move in wrestling, I'm sure, until you do it the first time. You just don't know. So I'd done the work. I made the leap, but you're still nervous.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, cool. Well, Michael, thank you so much, man, for sharing like so much great information. And I love the topic of the economy and stuff like that. I'm not an economist. I've never done econ classes. Just affects what we do, right? It really affects what, a quest for financial freedom and everything we do in terms of investing. So I think, you've got to pay attention. And I always enjoy listening to people like yourselves who has so much experience, being there, done that, right? Been through it, right? Worn the t-shirt.
I got the scars, man. The scars.
Yeah, the scars to prove it, right? And they're usually the best lessons as well, right? It's like,
amen.
Better than reading in any book. The scars are the things that teach you. So awesome. Well, before we go, where can people find out more and hear, get in touch, hear about what's going on with you and all that good stuff?
I appreciate that. Yeah, the best way to follow me is on YouTube. My channel is One Rental at a Time. If you want the story of the book, go to Amazon or Audible. It's there for you.
Check it out. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, the Z-Man. I appreciate you taking the time, man. Have a good rest of your day.
Take care.